Torah 148. Let's finish the Maamarim. Okay. The Rebbe is explaining that why did they see Reina Sakelis Vesalapidim? Again, this is also the Rotzev Veshev. A voice is a revelation from higher to lower. Like, that comes from the air, and then you have the flames of fire, which are going Mamata Lamaila. Then the Pasuk continued and said, Vesa'ad Ashin. In the ocean, okay, these few lines you learned. Okay, a smoke is when it comes when it's held in something physical that has you say the afon. So the same thing is happening in Nefesh Shabamis. Sheminegel Sitru Kedusha. When the Nefesh Shabamis is transformed to the level of Kedusha, then it's called Ashan. Viteva Ashan. What's the nature of smoke? Sha'elim is Kaddish Eid Madlekes. It goes up to a higher level. Umachas says Aish, and it holds on to the fire. That the smoke comes out of it. The same thing. So the pasuk says like this: they saw the sounds, they heard the fires, whatever. And the mountain burning, right, smoking. So he says that's all the level. Amshachas kelis lapidim, which is ratzav v'shev, the sitra kedusha canal. Meaning when the Nefesh Abamis becomes closer to Kedusha, so then you have the longing of the Neshama wanting to leave the body, and then you have the Shuv, the Neshama staying in the body. And then it says, Vayar ha'am vayanu. And the nation saw, they trembled, and ha'am ha'am l'mayla v'reisha dekra. V'chol ha'am reina sakeles. Now it says like this. No, but the pasuk says like this. Alter Rebbe is saying an interesting thing. At the beginning of the pasuk it says, "V'chol ha'am re'in sakeles esalapidim." Who does refer to over there? The Yidden. They saw the fire. They saw the third and all that. Then it says, "Vayar ha'am vayonu vayamdu merachik," and the nation saw and they trembled. Who is the second nation? That refers to the eight of Rav. Not to the Yidden.
And they trembled?
One second. V'yam l'mayla b'reisha dekra kol Yisrael. Avol sefer dekra. The end of the passage says, Vayar ha'am vayonu. That goes on the eight of Rav. Shlohorein esakeles. They didn't see the voices. They only stood from the distance. Because the eight of Rav were Egyptians. It's a very interesting thing. At the beginning of Parshat B'Shalach, there's a very famous Klei Yakar. The pasuk says like this: "Vayi b'shalach paras ha'am, v'lei nocham elokim es ha'am, pe'yushu ha'am." A bunch of times it says ha'am, and then the pasuk says v'chamushim olu b'nei Yisrael me'eretz Mitzrayim. They were armed and they left Egypt, but over there it says b'nei Yisrael. Okay, so the Klei Yakar says that normally in Chumash, when it says ha'am, it refers to the eight of Rav. Multitudes that went out with the Yidden. He's Rachamushim. When they got the Chumash, Olu b'nei Yisrael, that refers to the Yidden. So here now, Chumash. Okay?
The Chumash.
Torah. So it says, one second. So it says, the Alter Rebbe is saying over here like this: V'chol ha'am reina sakeles esapidim. Who saw you saw what's normally heard and all that. That was the level of the Eden. Then it said, Vayar ha'am vayanu. The nation saw and they trembled, they stood from the distance. That refers to the eight of Rav. Now why didn't the eight of Rav see the voices like the Yidden did? So he says, because being in Zayin, like he said before, what's a curl? A curl is hamshacha momayla lamata. That's what Alter Rebbe just got to say. So now, who saw the hamshacha? Hainu masha erein sof sheilum is galib b'masha batul elav yisbarach. Where does Hashem rest? It's something which is batul. That bittul comes from the neshama. The eight of Rav didn't have a neshama. They're goyim. They're eight of Rav. Okay? But the nefesh it feels a lukus. And because the nefesh is limited, therefore, it becomes affected by a lukus which is infinite. In other words, like this. Something you're accustomed to, you don't get affected by, basically. When something new happens, then you get affected. A neshama in a body is limited. It's a nivra. It's in the body. It becomes mamish. It becomes like tangible. So the neshama then becomes affected in a way when it has something out of the ordinary. What is that? An infinite revelation of Elokus.
But it's a part of it. How could it be?
Yeah, but when it comes into the body, it automatically becomes restricted. Not only that, once the neshama is in the body, it could sin. It could sin. Nefesh kisechta. The nefesh could sin.
I thought the body sin. I know they are
Together. But the nefesh, who needs Gehenim, the body or the soul? Who needs to be cleansed? The neshama. The body doesn't go to hell. The body goes in the ground. So the neshama needs to be cleansed because the neshama in the body, because it's limited, so therefore the neshama in the body has it becomes tremendously affected from the bli gvul. He says, therefore, if it is Paul me'entav she'ein b'chinas gvul arei zeh b'chinas kol v'amshachas me'ein sof u'bli gvul b'chinas gvul. So he says like this, why did the neshama, the Yidden, become affected? The Yidden became affected because the Matan Torah was an infinite revelation of Hashem, and that the finite in the neshama in the body felt. But the aid of Rav lohoya b'em koyach v'spailezu. The aid of Rav who didn't have this level of neshama do not get so much affected because over there the neshama, they don't have a neshama, so it doesn't become affected from it so much. It doesn't feel it.
Not as much, Rabbi.
It doesn't feel it at all.
Yeah, but he said that they...
One second. We'll see now why. So he says, just like it's known that Ikar is Pilot Shalahem. The primary, what affects them the most, Shem Ispol Me'alicha Galgalim. V'godlam v'gavayim Meshir G'dela Kokach V'ein Dal B'chinas Yesh. In other words, like this. What do normal people come inspired by? The sun, the moon, the planets, the size. We're talking about refined people, not behemoths. They become refined by the size of the planets and the whole solar system. But that's all yesh. They don't become affected from infinite godliness. They don't. And neshama becomes avum b'chinas ein tal baruch hu shein leisaf leinimshich lehem is pilus cloud. They don't become affected. That's and therefore he said, what did the Eid of Rav say? Elokim asher yelchel fanenu. They said, where's this God that's leading us? Why? Sheyiro b'ayin gashmi. They wanted to see him in a physical eye. They said, where is this guy Moshe Rabbeinu? Or we don't see him. You don't see him, he's not here. They don't understand there's something above physical seeing and smelling and seeing and tasting and all that. That a Yid can, huh?
Only Eid of Rav question is?
Yeah, the Eid of Rav served the Egel. They slept with them, all the other Jews. But they initiated it, they did it. All the problems in Chumash, if you notice in Chumash, always when it speaks about the Yidden complaining, it's about Tiksa Nefesh Ha'am Baderach. Always the pasuk says ha'am.
We were affected by it.
Because we were affected by listening to them. But they were the instigators. They were the troublemakers.
Yeah, they were talking derogatory tone. Where is this guy?
The whole Egel came about. What did they say? Where's Moshe Rabbeinu?
This guy, we didn't know him.
Yeah? That was the whole source of the Egel. They say, well, like, where's Moshe Rabbeinu?
The Arab lab exists now?
Inside us, yeah.
Yeah, all the...
Well, there's some
Inside
people
us?
act the same way.
Yes.
But we don't have any Arab rock.
You have a Yitro Hara? That's the Erev Rav.
Yeah, here.
Yeah, I'm not joking. That's the...
Is my understanding correct? The Rebbe is clearly saying the neshama of a Jew and neshama of the Goyim are way different.
There's absolutely no comparison.
According to Rabbi Shusha,
There's no nefesh.
Moshe.
There's no nefesh or lekis, which is a part of God, doesn't exist by Goyim. Doesn't have to exist. That's when they want to convert. You say, no, what are you converting for? Don't. Because, what's the purpose of it? You don't have to be it.
very hard to...
But the neshama, that's the one that has the ability to bring godliness into the world. Like we said, Shavim Mitzvahs B'nai Noach, the 7 Noach laws were to civilize the world, but not to bring godliness in the world.
They get reward ready.
They get reward for, if they're Chassidic U'Masa'elim, they have a chelik in Gan Eden, Olam Haba. The Rambam says, Chassidic U'Masa'elim, Yeshnam chelik Olam Haba.
So their nefesh gets reward. Something gets reward.
They have a soul. So does this stone.
Right.
So does this table. It has a power that keeps it in existence.
Right.
They have a nefesh,
So they get reward.
but not a nefesh or a kiss. We have two. The Alter Rebbe in the first parak of Tani, Yadua shel chol ish Yisrael echad yesh tei nefashos. A yid has 2 nefashos. A nefesh or a kiss, a nefesh abamas. What?
Are they able to do chesed that is not self-interest?
Yes. That's Chassidic U'Masa'elim.
That's Chassidic.
That's called Chassidic U'Masa'elim.
So which part?
In other words, when they realize they sacrifice themselves to give up. An interesting call from a shliach yesterday. There's a guy who's a guy. His wife and kids are Jewish,
Really?
but he died. He never said he was a yid. He was a guy, and they asked the rabbi to do the levaya, to the funeral. But he told me what's unique about this guy. He saved Jews during the Holocaust. So he's asking if he could do it. I said, well, of course you could do the funeral. A Jew could do a Goyish, he's being buried in a Goyish cemetery. Why can a rabbi? Of course a rabbi can officiate. I mean, you have to know what to say, and you can't make a Kel Mali Rachamim, you can't. But I said, especially the guy said, those guys that save Jews risk their lives. Those are, the Rambam defines Chassidic U'Masa'elim. The Rambam says clearly that they're goyim that do the 7 mitzvahs b'nei Noach not because they're logical, not because they're moral, because Hashem told Moshe Rabbeinu on Har Sinai that goyim have to keep 7 mitzvahs. That's a very interesting thing. That means a goy, according to the Rambam, says clearly that a goy who keeps the 7 mitzvahs b'nei Noach because it's the morally correct thing to do is not called Chassidic U'Masa'elim. Chassidic U'Masa'elim is one that does it because God said so. How do you know if somebody does it because Hashem said so or not? Because if they're doing it from an intellectual, moral point of view, a human point of view, they're not going to risk their lives to do it.
How could Mesirat Nefesh be a goy?
A goy is shaykh to sacrifice himself. There's not the concept, the mitzvah of Mesirat Nefesh doesn't exist by a goy. A goy is not mechuyev to give up his life for any of the 7 mitzvahs b'nei Noach. In other words, if a guy, let's say adultery, it's one of the 7 mitzvahs b'nei Noach. If a guy comes to a gun, to a guy's head, it says, commit adultery, else I'll kill you. He's allowed to commit adultery. He's not mechuyev Mesirat Nefesh. What?
How many times?
How many times?
He asks, how many times you want me to?
Yeah, right. What?
But which part gets rewarded for the Shabbat?
The soul of the guy.
So they have, so what?
He has a nefesh, I told you, he has a soul, not a godly soul, which is chilek alakami mal mamish.
But everything comes from Hashem. It's just a different level.
Is this table God?
Part of it?
1 second. Is this table God?
No, not part.
Is the existence of this table Hashem?
Absolutely.
If you bow down to a table, what's the din?
You get hungry.
Is this table God? Is there Einoid Mulvade?
Nothing could do it unless God.
1 second. Is this table God?
Yes.
So why, if you bow down to the table, is it Avodah Zarah?
Because it's not revealed. very, very limited.
Because it's not a revealed level of God. It's Elokim Achei. That doesn't take away from the fact that the existence of the table is dependent on Hashem.
Christian fundamentalists were the one to, by and large, risk their life to save Jews because they looked at it as obligation, because they took the...
Again, if they do it because Hashem said to Moshe Rabbeinu and Har Sinai, and they can keep the 7 mitzvahs properly, they have to do Muslim. They have a chelik in Olam Haba. Not, it says in Sfarm, I think, not the same Olam Haba as a Jew, but they have a chelik in Olam Haba. Okay, let's go back.
In terms of Neshama, Rabbi, in terms of Neshama Elokit, are they any different than others who deny
There's no Nefesh Elokis by a guy. Period. This is what Chazal say about the demons and the devils. If the eyes would be able to see the mazikin, we would crack up from the power that they have. Alpha Pikain Einaisim Klum they made a Shemayim. Yet, so if the devils and the demons are so powerful, why don't they just do whatever they want? Because they fear God. That means that fear of Hashem, like it said by Matan Torah, Vayar ha'am vayanu, the nation, the Eid of Rav saw and he stood fearful, that's shaykh even by a guy. By the mazikin also. Why don't the mazikin hurt people if they're very powerful? The shadim and all that. Because they have fear of God.
But they still get some stuff done. They still get some things done.
1 second. So he says, he says, so now down to the best, so why are they called mazikim? If they're impossible for them to go against the will of Hashem, he says like this. The Gemara says the mazikin cannot sin because they have fear of Hashem. Yeah, a yid has bechira; they could sin. So l'chera, they're greater than we are. They can't sin, and we can't. We could. And he says that's the it's very fundamental. This Shazal Klal Gadol. This is a tremendously great rule. She'ikir hefesh ben sitr l'kedusha uven kliper sitr achro shemalachim and neshamas come from sitr kedusha. The good angels come from the side of kedusha. Yesh lehem bittul me'amshachas earning to ba'atzmi chvedi kaviyachim. They have bittul from Hashem. Lochem bittul malachim gadol ad me'ed. That they have this tremendous awe and fear. Says that they can't even handle it. It comes in the way of Gilui. He says Klipa though, that Elokus doesn't reveal itself in them. It's only powerful from the distance. A simple example. Darkness is very powerful. People are scared of the dark. It's a very powerful thing. But it's nothing. It's emptiness. Well, if you think about it, you bring in a little tiny match or candle, and the darkness is done. So, because he said like this, in Kedusha, because they feel the bittul, malachim, neshamas, so therefore, they become tremendously non-existent, like in a bittul. Klipa doesn't feel it internally. So therefore, it's extremely powerful. But that's why that's why they're afraid of Hashem, but not in a way that they feel it internally. That they actually internalize it. There's a famous question. A guy, we find by Bilam, that brings us down one of the Basi Laganis. Bilam, in the comment, in the order. Bilam, when he was offered the job to go curse the Yidden, so what did Bilam say? I cannot transgress the will of Hashem. I can't. You want me to go curse the Jews? I can't. Okay? Yet the Gemara says in Sanhedrin,
He does all the illegal.
Bo ala Seinei. he had relations with his donkey, which was one of the Sheva mitzvahs b'nei Noach.
This is donkey.
Yeah, which was one of the 7 Noach laws, by the way, homosexuality, what's it called, obesity, whatever. All these things are forbidden for a guy. So here you got this big tzaddik Bilam that comes along and says, I can't go against the will of Hashem. And then he goes and has a relation with his donkey.
What's going on?
So, can he or can't he? So the Rebbe explained, no, this is very basic. The Rebbe explains, in the Sheva mitzvahs b'nei Noach, because they were commanded to keep it, a guy has free will. Because if there's no free will in a guy keeping Sheva mitzvahs b'nei Noach, then he can't be rewarded or punished.
Right.
Punishment and reward can only be if you have the choice to do it or not to do it. If you're forced to do it, you can't be punished. Right? If you're programmed to do it, you can't be punished. When it comes to curse the Jews, which is not one of the Sheva mitzvahs b'nei Noach, he says, I can't go against the will of Hashem. L'chayra doesn't make sense, though. That's what the Rebbe explains over there. But l'chayra,
Why? It was very attractive.
but if he can't go against the will of Hashem, this is also against the will of Hashem. But the answer is, this, because he has free choice, he feels it internally. Because he has the choice to do it or not to do it. That means it's felt internally within him. The other thing is, if makif, so there's like this awesome power that he's afraid to start up with. Why? Because that's the power of klipa. Klipa does not internalize kedusha. It can't, because it's not a vessel for it. The vessel to internalize kedusha is bittul. Klipa doesn't have that bittul.
Rabbi, what he really intended to not to transgress, but he was overwhelmed by the beauty of the donkey.
I have to think about that for a week. Come back to me in a week, I'll think about it. What?
But the goy is in the hands of Hashem. Outside of the Sheva mitzvah b'nei Noach,
Yeah.
whatever the will of Hashem, the goy will do.
And a Jew not?
Jew has a bechira for mitzvah.
Only in 613 mitzvahs. Out of that,
B'yad Shamayim.
okay, so a guy has b'china 7 mitzvahs. Out of that, they have no free choice. A Jew also had in Torah mitzvahs, he has free choice. Outside, we have no free choice.
Rabbi, why did Hashem create all the klipa and all those things, the evil and all these things?
Because good can only be good when the chance to do evil exists.
Evidence. Yeah.
If you can't do evil, then you do good. It's worthless.
That's right.
That's why malachim are worthless, basically. I mean, they're great guys. I don't have them personally. They're great guys. But there was one, when I was in Australia, there was a yeshiva bach that the mashpir of Zalman Serabansky said, he called him the malach. He called him malach. He said, why am I calling you malach? Because you're not a mensch. So you're not a mensch, you call him malach. Okay.
It used to be the real Avram Malach.
So he says, Mashenk, yeah, the Maggid's son was known as Rabbi Avram the Malach because he was completely removed from anything physical.
No, New York also.
Mashenk and Aklip is Sitrachra. Unikos, Achiyot also Miyam the Pirudadir, Chayis comes in the world of Pirud. Shein Amshach is earned to Baruch Sherem is Galabehem Klal, Pchina Saint Sof, Sharei Teis, and Malcolm, they exist and they say, Allah Kod Alakai, the God of God. So therefore, the chayis of klipa is only a superficial, external power. And it's very powerful, because makif is higher than pnimi. Pnimi needs a keli. The Chassidus asks, how is it possible that in the time of Golus, the Goyim controlled the Yid? Definition of Golus, the Goyim are controlling us, yeah? L'chayra, how could that be? Yidden are from a higher level than a Goy. How can a Goy control us? So the answer is, because a Yid is only controlled from Pnimius. And because we sinned, we're not bottle, we're not Kalim, so therefore we don't get the Pnimius, so we don't have the Chayas. Goyim don't exist from Pnimius. Goyim exist from Chitzonius. Forget, so when there's no Pnimius by the Jew, they become super powerful. Like Yitzchok said to Esav and Yaakov, Hakol kol Yaakov, Yadayim Yadei Esav. And Rashi says from the Medrash, that when there's the voice of Yaakov, the hands of Esav don't have power. When there's no voice of Yaakov, then Esav has power. It's a balance.
It's the Panemius of Yaakov.
Right. But the Goyim don't have Panemius.
How did we get here?
He's speaking about that's why the nation stood from the distance. The Yidden saw the Keos Lapidim. He explained that's the Rotz of a shave, the internal and external, and he said that's why by Har Sinai it says Har Hashem, which is the smoke again, Rotz of a shave. But by the Goyim, the Erev didn't have that. So he said, but where did they get the power from? Because they have Makiv. And Makiv doesn't need a Keli. And the Makiv is more powerful. It's a higher level than internal. Right? Seviv is higher than Mamala. So because they don't have that, so they're there for their level of Seviv. They're very powerful. Valzen, Namar Malchus, Malchus, Kol, Aslay. Mashat, Kodar, Shakol, and Misal Yer, Mikab, Mechem, to get Malchus. Malchus, Kibla, and Berotz, and therefore they got the Melucha of Melech Bas V'Dam. Masha'en, Kemachol, Dar, V'Dar. Which is Alma de Pruda, La Yachol, Em Shem Meluch, Elam, Memshol. What are we saying in Ashrei? We'll finish it like Malchuscha, Malchus Kol Olam, Umemshaltecha, B'chol Dar V'Dar. Now, what's the difference between Malchus and Moshel? Malchus, we say in Davening, Malchus Beratzein Kibla, a king, you have to accept, you have to coronate. Memshala means a dictatorship. Yeah? What's the difference between, so therefore he said like this, Malchuscha comes Malchus Kol Olam. That's Panemius. B'chol Dar V'Dar, when there's Klipa and all that, then it's Memshaltecha. There's no Malchus because they're not internalizing Alokus. So in the B'chol Dar V'Dar, it's the power of Moshe.